Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean Tobias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome Sasan Goodarzi to the Reboot Chronicles. He is the CEO of Intuit and an Atlassian board member, a former Kellogg student as well, and where I teach, of course. As many of you know, Intuit is a Silicon Valley-based technology platform that helps consumers and small businesses overcome their most important financial challenges. They've expanded beyond the old days of QuickBooks and TurboTax, adding a lot of brands like Credit Karma, MailChimp, and Mint, and today have operations around the globe with about 100 million customers. That's a lot. And over 17,000 employees who delivered $12 billion in revenue last year. Pretty impressive. Good to see you, Sasan.
Very good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to talking to you here. I thought I'd just jump right into talking about, platforms. A lot of the viewers are on just about every internet platform out there, and you know a lot about consumers and SMBs, small, medium-sized businesses. When Uber knows everything about my comings and goings, right? Or Lyft, and Netflix knows all of my preferences and what I like to watch and do, therefore lifestyle choices as well. Google knows, well, quite frankly, too much, but just about everything on many fronts, including all my credit cards, and a lot of people trust them to store with. And, we can go on, but Intuit also has some strategic advantages. You know a lot of things about spending and I don't know, work trends and things like that. So I thought that'd be a good place to start. How does, besides what does that mean? It's just like, how does that actually give you this competitive edge in terms of growth and innovation and product roadmap development and where you're going to take the company in the next few years?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll start with where we think about everything, which is the problems we're trying to solve for our customers. So if I were to just take a few minutes and talk about what we declared as most important, we really focus on a few things. One, for consumers, we're focused on trying to help them save money, try to help them get out of debt, and really make ends meet. Because the majority of folks around the globe, more than 65%, they don't really have enough money to make ends meet on a week-to-week basis. And then for small businesses, small businesses are really consumers. They just have made a choice to be entrepreneurs and go into business for themselves. And the problem that we are focused on for them is to help them, customers, and really manage their cash flow. And so if you start with that context in terms of what's most important that we're trying to solve for our customers, we have the privilege and the honor and frankly, the obligation to manage the data for our customers. We have, with the 100 million customers that you pointed to, we have about 55,000 data attributes per consumer. We have almost 400,000 financial attributes per small business. So we have a lot of data. And to bring it down to earth, we see for like a small business, we see all of your money coming in. We see the customers that you serve. We see the vendors that you serve. We see all the employees that you have. So there's a lot of data that we have access to. And we really, with their permission, we leverage that data to really help them make decisions, help them feel their success as a small business. For consumers, it's to help them find ways to improve their credit score, to be able to save money, to be able to pay the right bills on time, and to really just achieve prosperity, which is ultimately our mission. But that's the way we sort of leverage the data that we have access to fuel the success of our customers.
Massive amounts of data. Your brand must be really trusted for 100 million people to be, putting all that and syncing with their bank accounts and, gosh knows what else, right? So when you look at growth and innovation, to me, that's a huge competitive advantage. Some companies have a dashboard into what's going on with consumers. I know you're a customer guy, user experience design, human centered, whatever you want to call it this week. So we get that you guys are focused on that. And that probably transformed and rebooted the company a couple times from the old CD-ROM days. Actually, I think it was discs, but when Tim Cook started the company, it was a little floppy disk probably. So when you look at growth and innovation. At Kellogg, we talk a lot about BFS. There's a lot of, if you're over $1 billion, you get big and fat and slow, and the engine slows down. It's everything from human nature to bureaucracy to it's hard. Um, and one of the big things we've noticed is just the lack of speed tends to be one of the problems with, forget about all the other attributes because there's a lack of a lot of things. But how do you kind of overcome some of the bigness that you've turned into and stay, what I've heard, still pretty nimble, pretty agile, pretty focused organization?
I'll tell you, your question is a real important fundamental question that I think slows down many companies, and it is top of mind for us. I'm a velocity junkie. I often talk with my team
Me too.
and at our state of the company where we get all of our employees together, that velocity it's a leadership decision. It's a leadership choice. And I actually think a company of our size and our scale can use speed to our advantage. It can also be, the thing that completely slows us down. And so we're just very intentional about how we tackle it because I don't think you can just say, let's go fast without being, intentional about it. And for us, it's
Exactly.
One, there's a mindset element, there's a process element, and then there's a technology element. From a mindset perspective, we often talk about what we call a day one mindset, which is every day is day one. Think about it relative to you just started in a new job. The curiosity that you have, the questions that you ask, the search that you have for what's blocking the team, the impact that you want to make is all about speed and impact and velocity. So mindset is a huge thing that we talk about. We train our leaders on. Process, just one example, is our decision-making framework that we use. And our general philosophy around our decision framework is most decisions are two-way doors, meaning that you can empower the teams closest to the work to make the decision. And if it was a decision that you don't love, you can always go back and take a different direction. There's very few decisions that are what we call one-way doors, where once you make the decision, you can undo it, but it's a really big decision that could impact the company. So that's a process example. And the third is technology. I mean, we have been investing heavily in making sure that all of our services are sort of, one, that's self-help, so you can access the service that you want. Two, making sure all of our technology is modular so teams can leverage the services that they need and not get into meetings. And then we measure code deployment. Now, this is a big debate. Some companies say that's great. Some companies don't like it. We think it's important if you use it the right way. And so we are very intentional about how we measure velocity. Last thing I would say is we have employee engagement scores where twice a year we measure the engagement of our employees. And there are many sub-elements like how fast they can move, how fast decisions get made. Do they feel like they're delivering for customers versus spending time in meetings? And so we have a quantitative way of really understanding how our employees feel, coupled with then things that we do to just unlock moving faster as a company. But it's a leadership decision for us, and it's very important for us.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. I love the day one mentality. I'm sure you know the CEO of Logitech, Bracken. He, famous for firing himself every year. And I've always said, why not every quarter? And it sounds like that's what you guys are doing. Like every new product launch, every new day, because I assume it's because it's a competitive market out there. I mean, you guys are the big gorilla, the leader, but there's so much going on in financial services. It's just, it's slowed down a little bit going into, 24 here. But how do you kind of, and I might add, you've also done a really decent job at, acquiring. So when we look at growth and innovation and how should you build stuff internally, how should you, look at acquiring companies and how should you actually borrow technology and do a much better job partnering. And I mean, you've set up a lot of partners around the globe as well. So it seems like you're hitting on all three cylinders there. But how do you look at the growth and innovation from a build by borrow perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. I want to actually go back to something you said earlier, and I'll come back to your question around speed. Thanks. I want to give all the credit, by the way, to my good friend Andy Jassy. When I got to know him, when I was the CIO of the company and he was in AWS, we made a decision to shift a lot of what we do to AWS. And that's actually where we learned. He gave us the opportunity and personally gave me the chance to go in and observe how they work. And that's actually where I learned this day one mindset and mentality, because it's a real advantage in terms of what it can do to help you question everything, to unblock things that are critical and not get comfortable with what you do every single day. With that, as context, going to the question that you asked, first of all, for us, it is all about the customer problems that we are trying to solve. And we believe the durability of our company will come from innovating from within. Because at the end of the day, if you try to partner your way to every answer or buy your way to every answer, you're not going to have a company that has the DNA of innovation. So our first and foremost focus is, what are the customer problems that we're trying to solve? And how do we allocate our sort of capital towards innovating within and building the strength of our innovation within? Because our advantage, and you asked about this earlier, really comes from data and the application of AI to that data to really sort of ignite innovation internally. So it's really from within. With that said, we will always look to understand if there are problems that we can solve for our customers through partners and or acquisitions. And I think two noteworthy ones are both Credit Karma and MailChimp. And the reason we chose to make those acquisitions is it probably would have taken us, based on the assessment that we did, about 5+ years to build some of those capabilities. And by the way, we would have then been 5 years behind. And we felt like with the innovation that we are igniting internally and with respect to the focus that we have on acquisitions, that ultimately that's what ignites growth.
You made a really good point about you've got to balance build, buy, borrow, and do more things internally. So you do have a culture. There's many companies, just Silicon Valley companies have acquired many things that don't necessarily fit or get shut down or whatever. So when you look at the borrowing part, though, we run this program called Dancing with Startups, where we help large corporations partner with startups all over the world and not necessarily buy them. And how do you guys look at that, especially the your targets are small business as well. Like when you look at vertical applications and things. And your example, for instance, of AWS was perfect, because back when you and I were running the early internet day companies, you had to build your own server rooms, for gosh sakes. So I think people have figured that out now. But yeah, as you look at your growth and innovation engine, it looks like you're becoming more, almost like GoDaddy, more of a broad-based provider to these companies, to more about growing their business. You're already a trusted governance partner for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Our focus, if you go back to the customer problems that I mentioned earlier, which is help you save money, get out of debt, make ends meet, and if you're a small business, for us to really helping you fuel customer growth and manage your cash flow, the way to solve that problem is to be a platform. And so when you look at our platform, we help. We have nearly 10 million small businesses, just to use that as an example.
Yep.
And we don't overserve one industry. Our small businesses go from hairstyling to plumbing to construction to insurance companies, very, very broad based. And in order to be able to do that, we really have to solve the most important problems horizontally, and also have a platform with APIs that if a small business, depending on their size, wants to have a certain application that is very critical for insurance or for plumbing, that they can, in essence, go get that off of our app store. So that's how it's about horizontally solving the problem, leveraging our platform play, but at the same time, making sure that we have the ability to provide very specific vertical problems that we can solve for our customers. And that's really an important method to the success that we've seen for our customers.
Exactly. And the, most people horizontally, like, is all the capabilities and functionality, listeners, and vertical is obviously all the industries. There's probably not too many industries you're not in, maybe nuclear power plants or something. So when you look at that, so the other thing you touched on is technology as part of your, ecosystem of tools and, quite frankly, competitive advantages. So when you look at AI, and you look at what's going on there, all the rage last year was, Chat GPT and Bard with Google. But to me, when I talk to folks, it's really about that is a technology enablement type of tool. What really happens is when you start doing what you just said is how do you start integrating that into the horizontal and vertical applications by industry? And to me, that seems to be when things start happening. So almost like the second and third wave of innovation. Because everyone's like started out, they were just obsessed with the typing capabilities and giving me text. It's like, yeah, what about voice? What about all the other vertical applications like medical? And so question there is, how is AI going to transform Intuit, your industry, and especially with platforms like Mint and other things? And how does that tie into your roadmap planning? Because for some people, it's throwing a curve in it. For others, it's massive opportunities.
Well, I could talk about this all day because I actually think it's game changing. And I've been on the record saying that I believe AI will ignite global innovation. And it already is, very similar to how when electricity was invented, all of the innovation was ignited because of electricity. Same with internet. When internet was really when the idea of the internet came about, it has ignited all kinds of connections, commerce, globe. AI, in my view, is that third sort of platform of global ignition of all kinds of innovation that we can't even think about today. And it's actually why when we refreshed our strategy about 4 years ago, it's why AI, our core of our strategy is to be an AI-driven expert platform. And those aren't just words. It's actually what drives our investments. For us, it's a very big deal because first of all, it's all about the data because AI doesn't have meaningful impact if you don't have access to data. And so you look at the access to data that we have on behalf of our customers, and then specifically, there are 3 areas that we've been intentionally investing in the last 4+ years. It's been machine learning, knowledge engineering, and natural language processing. And really, it's helped us ignite innovation in ways that we never imagined possible. For instance, we can help a small business based on the money we see coming in and the money going out. We can actually project what their cash flow is going to be. And then we will make recommendations to them. Recommendations like, hey, Sasan, we think you should click here and get paid for this invoice that you just sent out to John up front. Or you're going to run out of money paying your employees by Friday. These are 3 choices you have to ensure that you can have the money to pay your employees. So it's really having a platform where we propose the decisions that are right for you, whether it's a consumer or a small business, so that you can make the right decision. And that's all because of AI. And I think as we look ahead, I believe that we are at the beginning of an exponential curve because of AI. In our case, it's changing the industry from the innovation that's now possible that wasn't before. But I think fundamentally, if I were to simplify it, it's giving us the ability to go from building platform capabilities so the customers can do the work to platform capabilities where we do the work for the customer and propose decisions for them. And I think now with the capabilities of generative AI over time, that will just simply accelerate what is possible. So for us, it's core to our strategy, it's core to our investment, it's core to our innovation. And I think lastly, that coupled with blockchain and decentralized technologies, which is really for us all about eliminating the time from sending money and getting money, is world changing for our customers.
I love how you started with cash flow as a core small business issue. It's like, hey, AI can say things like, hey, maybe you should get your inbound stuff electronically and send your outbound via slow checks. A little bit of humor there, but it's like sometimes it's that simple, right? And but what you're talking about is game changing stuff that will totally transform the platforms and make it easier for people to actually run their business and spend more time on that versus, I'll just call it what it is, accounting in some cases, right? Mm-hmm. How do you? So I was going to that next, which is blockchain, Web3, distributed entrepreneurs in the future. Maybe let's start with things like crypto and Bitcoin, though, and you can ease into the other stuff. How that's already changing your business, probably your acquisition funnel as well. What are you seeing there for your sector?
Yeah, well, we separate crypto at the highest level into 2 things. One is there's the currencies, The second is sort of the blockchain and decentralized technologies. The currencies is currencies, right? I know there's been a lot of hype around the upward momentum of the currencies, the crash of the currencies. We are really focused on the technology because we can always and have enabled our customers to be able to send and receive using Bitcoin or any other currencies. That's really not the needle mover. It's just a currency, like dollar, like euro. It's really about the technology, and our interest and investment in the technology is all about eliminating all the middleware and all of the time it takes from sort of sending and receiving money, right? We like, for instance, when you think about AI and decentralized technologies, you can go from, I need to send an estimate. I'm a plumber and I need to send you an estimate to do some plumbing work for you. From estimating to invoicing to getting my money, all of that can be done through the capabilities of AI, where I can write you a proposal without doing much work. I can leverage all of the machine learning capabilities to send you an. Then when you're ready to pay me, I get instant deposit of your payments to me. And that's the power of AI and decentralized technologies and blockchain. The currency is the currency. It's not really a growth driver. It's just any which way you want to get paid.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you think about just the whole disaggregated, the promise of Web3 under the auspices of your target markets, which is, more entrepreneurial, small business, and many platforms, they're overpaying, the splits, and this, just take the app stores, for instance. And as you see that, hopefully, eventually, starting to, the cut going more to the, the entrepreneur versus the platforms. Do you see that changing your business as well, actually empowering that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, at the end of the day, no matter the technology evolutions, the secular trends, our compass is the consumer business. In the case of your example, because consumer small businesses will interact in this new world. And for us, it's how do I help you grow your business? How do I help you manage your cash flow? And if it all happens to be in a world where it's Web3, where what you're selling is all digital in a Web3 world, the commerce back and forth is all in a Web3 world. All the currencies could be cryptocurrencies. For us, it's about being there for you so that you can leverage our small business platform to be able to run business, grow your business in that world. So the technology really enables the growth of small businesses. We do believe that, especially with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, there is going to be more and more folks that will actually create new businesses given all the capabilities of Web3. Our focus is how do you leverage those technologies to be there for the customer and really never losing sight of the customer problems that we want. One of the things I've noticed, not having grown up in the Silicon Valley and worked for the likes of Honeywell for many years, serving many different industries, is sometimes we get too hyped up over shiny objects and then we fall in love with the shiny object versus falling in love with the problem that customers face. And for us, it's all about fall in love with the customer problem, not the solution, but have an innate eye towards what technology trends can help you accelerate innovation. That's really the focus of the company.
Yeah, I love that. What kind of advice would you give? You mentioned the next generation starting companies, and what kind of advice would you give them based on what you've been through? You've had a very eclectic background, and now that's your sweet spot. So they probably look to you for good ideas. But if you're sitting down with some of your former MBA Kellogg students, what would you tell them in terms of venturing out at this point?
I'll tell you, my advice is always, quite basic, which is one, if you're starting a business, let me use that as an example so my comments aren't overly generic. Really sort of fall in love with what's the problem you're trying to solve and be passionate about the customer problem that you're trying to solve. Don't fall in love with yourself and your solution, because that's the fastest way to go out of business. Fall in love with the customer problem. I think that the second is it's critically important that you recognize nothing in the world comes easy. Perseverance, hard work, being resilient is essential. Sometimes you have the best things come out of your worst years, your worst failures. And if you want something, you got to work for it, and you got to, stay resilient. And then last but not least, in fact, just this past weekend, I was giving advice to a small business that happens to be a friend that does a lot of filming for my son, because my son plays basketball, and he's going to go from working for someone to starting his own business. And I said, listen, one, I hope you're in love with what you do, because you're going to have great days. You're going to have not so good days. But two things matter. If you're going to hire someone, make sure they're the best at what they do. Don't go after quantity, but a few most talented folks. And then cash flow. You have to focus on your cash flow, because that's the biggest thing that, creates a dead end for small businesses. So basic advice, but I've just found it to work over time.
No, it's good stuff. And not focusing on the shiny object. You were very, very kind about that. You said sometimes we focus on the shiny object. The tech industry is notorious for it, which leads to the next downturn usually. Sasan, I really want to thank you for joining us today. Maybe just before we leave, we'd love to hear, you've been through so much, from coming into this country to, running one of the largest public companies in the U.S. So you've probably been through some reboots on your own. You've rebooted the company clearly and got it on the right track. It's amazing. But what have you experienced that, as you've gone and faced some tough challenges that maybe you might want to share today?
I'll focus on my own personal learnings and advice that I give. I give this advice a lot to our interns, which is really don't ever let anyone put a ceiling on what is possible for you as an individual, and don't let anyone put you in a box of what is possible. I think that each individual should have huge dreams and big dreams. Dreams are easy. But you have to work hard for them, and don't ever let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do. You're on earth for a reason. Pursue your why, and be relentless and passionate about what you want to achieve, and be an inspiration to others that may one day want to learn and choose to follow your path. That would be my biggest advice. Life is short. Make it worthwhile.
Make it worthwhile. Did you get that? Did people treat you like that at an earlier age? It's like, that's not you. You, and obviously you had the tenacity to go out and do it.
That is exactly why I have the belief system that I do. Having come to the U.S. at an early age when there was a revolution and Iran took hostages, I was bullied. I was told to go back home every day. I was told what I couldn't achieve. And I just learned that the only person that can be my biggest supporter is me. And so that's where I learned you gotta be relentless of the dream that you have, the pursuit of your passion, and get after it. And the best will happen. Whatever the outcome is the outcome. But don't let anyone ever tell you what you can't do. Beautiful. Thanks, Sasan. I really appreciate it. You've been listening to Sasan Goodarzi, who is the CEO of Intuit. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. I want to thank you for joining us today. We'll see you soon.